Hello, explorers. Now, if you're wondering why I am popping into your ears, don't even worry. So, this week we discussed anything and everything that's been happening in Star Wars, but there was one special topic, and quite a sad one actually, that we didn't get to, but we're putting out as an extra episode for you guys to enjoy. So, it's been such an overwhelmingly busy week of Star Wars, but this particular story, it was announced a few days ago that as of 2026, Star Wars Insider, the fan magazine, will no longer be publishing issues and its run will be coming to an end at number 237. I am genuinely quite devastated about this. I guess that I'd like to start by talking about the history of this absolute cornerstone of Star Wars media. I, like many of our fans, our friends, and our listeners, will be sad at this news, but it is so important to celebrate the legacy of this magazine. It traces its roots all the way back to 1978, so the year after Star Wars, the first Star Wars film was released, with the official Star Wars fan club newsletter that was set up by Lucasfilm. The newsletter then evolved into Bantha Tracks, which ran until 1987. And in 1987, the first Lucasfilm fan club magazine was published. This is the direct precursor to Insider. And then in 1994, best years, the year I was born, with issue number 23, it was rebranded as Star Wars Insider. Have you got a comment to make?
I graduated in 1994.
Shut the front door. That's brilliant. Star Wars Insider was rebranded, and this coincided with the tie-in to the TIE Fighter game. Over the years, its publisher has changed several times, from Fantastic Media to Wizards of the Coast to Paizo Publishing, IDG Entertainment, and finally Titan Magazines, and it celebrated its 200th issue on February of 2021. This magazine, this guide, this visual dictionary, anything and everything Star Wars Insider, it's worn all of the hats over the years. It's been part of the very beginning of Star Wars. And I have always enjoyed digging into the pages, especially when issues have come out in line with films coming out. I remember absolutely devouring the ones for the sequel movies. They were so fantastic. Jimmy, I'm guessing you were a big reader, or were a bit, there we go, of Star Wars Insider.
The latest issue, number 233.
Oh,
I find myself sometimes I don't read as much in there as I should, but yeah, there's always some good articles in there. There's good, they put stories in there. They have ongoing stories lines going on there from the High Republic. Just it gives a lot of cool people opportunities to do interviews and things like that. And so it's a pretty fun magazine. I do understand a little bit. They're always a little bit behind. Just like
yeah.
everything happens and then it's in the magazine. I'm like, yeah, I know that because that happened a month ago or 2 weeks ago, So I kind of understand with the media world that we live in, the social media world that we live in, a magazine about something, it never breaks anything new, really. It does give you lots of cool behind the scenes stuff that you don't get anywhere else because they have access to things that no scooper, I don't care how well they're dug in, can find. So yeah, I'll miss this magazine. I hope that maybe someone else comes around and picks it up. Who knows?
It seems a shame to say goodbye to something that's been so kind of intrinsically part of Star Wars kind of history and the fan community, especially. Star Wars wouldn't be what it is without the fandom. And even though people might think, like, I initially used to think that Star Wars Insider was like a fan run thing, like it wasn't licensed or officiated, but it is. It's been this long running kind of harmonious relationship between the fans and Lucasfilm. And yeah, maybe they weren't always quite on time with the magazine releases, but hey, journalism is journalism.
Yeah.
And although Jack wasn't able to join us this evening for this chat, he was able to take some time earlier in the week to have a chat with a long-time writer for Star Wars Insider, the host of the one, the only host of the fabulous Star Wars podcast, Fantha Tracks, the man who puts even my Star Wars knowledge and passion to shame, our friend, our colleague, Mark Newbold.
Hello, Star Wars fans, and welcome to Explore the Force Extra. I'm Jack, and I'm joined by a very special friend and guest of the show. It's Mr. Mark Newbold, all the way from Fantha Tracks. Mark, how you doing, buddy? I'm
very well, mate. How are you?
Yes, I'm doing very well. Thank you for joining me. It's such an hour. It's about midnight there for you in the UK, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I'm keeping the owls awake.
Nice. Like I said, super appreciate you coming on. I wish it could be on sort of better terms. We always love chatting Star Wars anyway. But obviously the reason we've got Mark on the show is to do with the news that was revealed this week, essentially, about Star Wars Insider magazine. After about 200 more issues, Star Wars Insider is going to end its current run in 2026. There's a lot of history behind this magazine. Essentially, the idea began in 1978 with the start of the official Star Wars fan club, which was a newsletter in the membership kit, which was renamed Bantha Tracks after a contest in issue 2, and it would mark its final edition in March 1987 with issue 35 covering the new Star Tours ride. And then essentially from there, the Insider magazine found life again with a premiere issue 23 in 1994, and has literally gone from strength to strength since then. Current issue we're at is 234. Like I mentioned, though, it's going to run into early 2026 and essentially stop running there. Now, I'm sure people are wondering, well, why is Mark Newbold on the show about Star Wars Insider magazine? So for those that don't know, before Mark obviously had all the stuff to do with Bantha Tracks, he's actually a massive contributor to Star Wars Insider magazine. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, you've been doing Star Wars Insider magazine since about September 2006?
Yeah, exactly. That issue 90. Yeah, back when IDG were publishing it, so pre Titan times. Yeah.
So I'd have been 16 years old, and I'm 35 now. So yeah, Mark's been pushing out Star Wars Insider magazine stuff for absolutely aeons. He's covered everything from websites, magazines, podcasts, convention work, interviews, the whole shebang. He's got his own little sections in there, such as My Star Wars, Red 5 Department, Launchpad as well. And he's credited to over 200 contributions, which I'm sure those are the contributions that made it onto the magazine, let's say. I'm sure you've done a lot more work with Star Wars Insider magazine. What, any comments from you just to begin with on your time with Star Wars Insider? How's it been for you?
Oh man, it's been it's not, I don't know, I don't want to undersell it or oversell it. It's been one of the best things I've ever done, to be honest. But because I was one of those kids that was getting Bantha Tracks in the early 80s, it was already Bantha Tracks by the time I started getting it. And you mentioned the competition in issue 2, and I weirdly got friendly with Preston Postle, who was the guy that came up with the name Bantha Tracks online. That, you know, to get Bantha Tracks and then get the Lucasfilm mag, and then, as you say, you know, the change over into Insider and all the way through. Yeah, it's just very special. And Bantha, well, you can see I run Bantha Tracks, and it's a in honor of Bantha Tracks, and the Insider is the sort of successor of that. So yeah, it's been amazing for me. You know, I always wanted something, or hoped to have something printed in the official mag, and that issue 90, the piece in that was, you know, I think if I'd have just had that, I'd have been happy. So to have had the chance to, you know, to become fairly regular as I have, and will do, you know, until the mag finishes. I don't undersell that. I don't think I'll ever quite get over how lucky I've been to have contributed that much.
Amazing. Let's talk about issue 90. Let's talk about the lead up then. Let's talk to me how you first got that, you know, that initial break. What was the drive?
I was running a site and did for about 10 years called lightsaber.co.uk. Excuse me. And one of the things that happened with that website was it started off as a fan fiction site based on all the role play stuff we did. And then I started to do interviews around about the year 2000. Kevin J. Anderson was the first person I spoke to. And by 2005, we'd become a news site, but the interviews carried on. So I had the chance to interview Frank Parisi, who was the then editor of The Insider. Lovely, all email exchange, sort of pre-Skype, you know, that sort of stuff. But at the end of it, when it was all wrapped up and done, we toed and froed a little bit. I said, well, if ever there's the chance to get something in the magazine, I'd love the chance to, you know, to pitch an idea. And went to the NEC to memorabilia as was, which you'll remember. And there was an event there called the R2s, which was something Hasbro put on, a little fan film thing that was on. So I covered the R2s. It was also the first time I met James Burns, who obviously would play a large part in my sort of online fandom from Jedi News, and wrote about this event sent it in to Frank, and he liked it, and I got paid for it,
Nice.
which was even better. And that was it. That was in the earlier pages of issue 90, and I didn't ever think that anything would come of it, or anything more would come of it. I kind of dined out on that thing for years.
Yeah. And then almost 20 years later, you're still going to be going, you're still going with Star Wars Insider Magazine. And I'm sure you've had so many highlights that we're going to dive into as well. Let's just talk about the news to begin with. Obviously, it's been announced it's going to be stopping. Clearly, yourself, other contributors would have known a little bit in advance as well. But what was your initial feelings on this?
Sadness, to be honest. I get it. It's an increasingly digital world, and print struggles. The cost of print is difficult. The cost of postage. I mean, we all know about the infamous tariffs and all the other elements that make posting things around the world difficult. It was a shock because it's happening to me in the moment, but when I sort of sat back and thought about it and realized that, maybe the world is changing a bit, but also I think it's such a shame because we're Star Wars fans and we collect. And to me, my lights have gone off. To me, Insider is
on to you.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I know, the 50p in the meter. To me, Insider is a collectible thing as much as it is a readable thing. And of course, you want to read it. There's insight in there that you don't get anywhere else. But it was a shock. But like I say, you're always hoping for some sort of reprieve or some sort of change of heart. There hasn't been one as we speak. There hasn't been one. I don't suppose there will be. But it's it was a bit of a shock because it's been for me personally, through Lightsaber, through Jedi News, onto Panther Tracks. It's been the other thing apart from the site that I'm doing at the time. It's the other thing that I kind of, there it is under my name right there. It's the thing that I'm sort of known for, I guess.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And there's a lot of, again, well-known contributors, especially lately with people putting the High Republic stuff in there that get noticed as well. And like you said, Mark, you can see with a lot of your articles as the other contributors, there's a lot of passion, and that passion is extant across the whole Star Wars fandom as well. A lot of your interviews you're doing, obviously it's on our behalf as well, but you can see the passion, and it is an outlet. It's a massive source of information, and also a getaway for myself. I constantly read them, I subscribed, and getting the news, it is a little bit devastating because we now start to look to, where are we going to get our information from now? Obviously, we've got podcasts out there. We've got Fan for Tracks out there, which is probably the best. I'm not just saying it because you're on the show. The best source for Star Wars information, because you guys are constantly keeping everyone updated the best you can. How big of an impact is this going to have, do you think, on the Star Wars community?
One of the questions I would love, and I don't know who I would ask specifically, but one of the things I would love to know is where's the connection to the fandom directly from Lucasfilm? One of the things that Bantha Tracks did so beautifully, the fan club magazine for the few issues it was before it became Bantha Tracks did it as well, and the Lucasfilm magazine that succeeded Bantha Tracks. But to me, Bantha Tracks did so fantastically well. Was it you really felt when you opened up that envelope, that newsletter, that this was coming directly from Lucasfilm's offices, and this was coming to you in a time when, and this really does speak to the original trilogy era, in a time when that was really all there was. Insider couldn't and can't do the same, because by the time Insider came along, we were heading towards the prequels. We were, we'd gone through the dark times, waggle the air quotes, so different things had happened, and there was just so much more out there. But Bantha Tracks did a wonderful job of making you feel like, somebody at Lucasfilm has written this and curated this, and you're a member of our fan club, so this is for you. Insider, as I say, was different because it's on newsstands and it's a subscriber thing. But nevertheless, it was, to me, the place, or one of the places, and obviously StarWars.com is another, and Lucasfilm.com, that Lucasfilm can directly address their fandom or readership or fans of. So I wonder now, without Insider, which is such a staple of that connection, how are they going to do that? Because social media is one thing, but that's such a fickle sort of up and down arena anyway. With so many sort of platforms, it's not like there's back in the day when it was Twitter and Facebook. Now there's so many other places, so that that's not a direct connection. So I do wonder how they're going to do that. I'd love to know the answer, but that's my concern. That's the one thing that I think fans will look at Insider and go, wow, like anything, I didn't realize I was missing it until it was gone, because I've seen some comments. Some people are like, wow, is that still going? I used to read that in the 90s, and others are like, I've always read it. I can't believe it's stopping. So it's different for everybody, but that's my concern.
Yeah, and that's a valid concern as well. And it's something that we've spoken about as well behind the scenes here at Explore the Forces. Have they now inadvertently made that disconnect between the fans and, if you like, Disney and Star Wars, etc.? You've already spoken about, again, some of the reasons you believe it may have stopped: printing costs, etc. I've seen things online where Star Wars is running out of ideas, etc., which I think is a whole load of baloney anyway. But I think, like you rightly said there, the times are moving forward. Printing now is not really a big thing. If money can be saved, then why not? But where do they go next for that connect? Do they issue out a newsletter on StarWars.com with more information, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, it's a thought. I mean, like I say, I've got no insider, no pun intended, no insider information on what they do next or where they go with this next, or whether the Insider name lives on in another format. Because if you remember, in the pages of Star Wars Insider for a while, Mary Franklin was running Bantha tracks. So there was a segment of the magazine that sort of honored that. So I don't know whether there's somewhere down the line that becomes Star Wars Insider as a brand, because obviously Lucasfilm owns that brand, tightened with the current publisher, or still are the current publishers. But Lucasfilm own the name Star Wars Insider. So whether that's a thing that they do, I don't know. It's way above my pay grade. But I'd like to think that there will be something. And also, as we said, you've said it, I've said it, print media it's a difficult realm to be in these days. Newspaper sales, imagine what newspaper sales are compared to where they were 10 years ago. We all just pick this up and check, the latest news feed, which will just spring on your phone straight away. So it's understandable. But what I would have liked to have hoped that somewhere down the line, that in that paper format, that collectible, tangible, I can hold this in my hands format, there's space for something Star Wars. Because having, for example, the digital versions of Star Wars Insider, it's a concern I've seen quite a few times on in the chats on posts that I've made and that my fellow contributors have made. What's to say that in 6 months' time that doesn't get switched off, and then anybody who has a digital copy of Insider doesn't have access to those magazines anymore? That is a worry. Whereas if you collected, and I keep going back to Bantha tracks, but if you collected Bantha tracks, you've only got to buy it once, you've only got to find it once. 36 issues in a collection, you can return to them anytime. They're not relevant now. They're a snapshot of their time, like every issue of Star Wars Insider is a snapshot of its time. But for the 6 weeks, that's the latest issue of Insider. It's it's there to be read and it's there to be enjoyed. So that is definitely a thing to think about.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think, again, you hit the nail on the head there right at the start of this chat, where Star Wars is about collecting stuff. And they did some absolutely gorgeous covers, alternate covers for subscribers as well. Especially when The Force Awakens was first getting announced and released, with the Kylo Ren one, which is a personal favorite of mine, which I've still got. Any personal standout favorite covers for you, Mark, that you've collected or seen?
There's so many. And like you say, it's usually the standard newsstand covers are great. I preferred Marvel back in the 80s when he had the Marvel logo and all the lettering on it, and it just looked busy and interesting. That's why I like Japanese design, because it just looks so busy and interesting. So I love the layout of Insider, and it's always looked good from back in the day right through to now. But some of those subscriber covers have been really fantastic. But I've got to say, my favorite one is going back to 2010 when Empire 30 was out, and they did a hand in carbonite cover but embossed.
Nice.
And that still, I had some stuff in that one, and that one was a bit special. So that's probably the one I would pick off the top of my head.
Okay, nice. So we spoke about favorite covers. Is there any article? Let's go with article to begin with, that you've actually thought, wow, I've produced that and that is an absolute banger? Any personal favorites?
I'm never that I'm never that thrilled with my own writing, to be honest. But there's been quite a few where I'm either pleased that I got to do it. I'll give you a couple of examples. I interviewed Suneo Sanda, the artist, the Japanese artist, who sent me, this was an email correspondence one, and he sent me some wonderful replies. But I kind of had to not rewrite it, but sort of work it so that it made more readable sense. Sense isn't the right word, but I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. It just didn't quite read right. So that one worked up really well, and I was thrilled to bits with that one because it came out really lovely. I didn't realize it at the time, but I think I'm one of the very last people to have interviewed Peter Mayhew. In fact, my interview with him, my last interview with him came out on the day that he passed. That issue of Insider arrived that day, so that was quite a thing. And I was fortunate, or again, probably not the right word, but did essentially the obituaries in the Launchpad sections for quite a few of the actors that passed. So, Richard Parmentier, who was a good friend. I used to run his website back in the day. Kenny Baker, I wrote his. Jeremy Bullock. So there's a number of people that I had the chance to sort of write the final word from Insider to them, which I was quite proud of, I guess. But interviews. I did. I didn't realize it. I didn't know it at the time until Chris Cooper, the editor, told me. But I had a run of about 6 issues where I did 2-part interviews, and there hadn't been a 2-part interview in Insider for years and years and years. And I did a 2-parter with Anthony Daniels, a 2-parter with, I think it was Warwick, a 2-parter with Dave Chapman and Brian Herring, which was kind of cool to have a little run of these 2-parters. So that was nice. And weirdly, even though I didn't actually do the interview for Insider, it was something that I did when I was doing Lightsaber. But that issue 119, the Empire 30 issue, there was a whole sort of retrospective on Empire Strikes Back, and I'd had the chance to interview Kirshner back in around about 2007, and so I could use elements of that interview for Insider, which was which was pretty cool actually. So I've been very fortunate over the years.
Nice. Is there any standout interviews that you've done? Obviously, I know we went to Nottingham that time. You told me that story about a certain droid, which I found really funny.
Oh, blimey, refresh my memory. I've got so many stories
the
about
Anthony Daniels one.
Oh, wow. Well, there's a couple of things that happened with Anthony Daniels. The one that sticks in my mind was that the one time I interviewed him was when his book was coming out, IMC3PO was coming out, and he invited me to his house. So I traveled. I won't say where it was because the snipers are everywhere. But I went to his house, and his wife Christine invited me in, and we sit down and we have tea and biscuits. It was the whole proper thing. Very nice tea as well, and did the whole interview, which was kind of mind blowing because, we all sat and watched Star Wars, and there's C-3PO, and now I'm sitting opposite C-3PO, who's so, I mean, he's so, not that he wasn't ever, but he's so easy with that responsibility of being 3PO now. I mean, it has been for a while, but like he'll just drop into the voice, and he remembers way more than he ever lets on. I think, it's almost like he's too cool for school if he sort of actually admits that he remembers things really, really well. And he'll just come out with these little moments. So that was a mega thrill to be able to do that. And the fact that the interview came out so well was a bonus. And then we had the chance to go back, and he did Musical Journey again. Oh, Star Wars in Concert, I should say. I still think it was Musical Journey. They came back for 4 performances at the tail end of last year, and so I had the chance to talk to him about that as well. So that was an interesting one. Yeah,
wonderful. Talk me through some of the the processes and how it works. Like, do you get given ideas? Just someone go, right, Mark, this issue of Insider, I want you to focus on the Skeleton Crew stuff, or go and find out more about the Acolyte for the people, etc. How's the whole process work?
It's a mixed bag. It's a real mixed bag. I mean, the process that should be done is to get approvals for everything, and 9 times out of 10, that's exactly what we do. I'll say, "How's about I interview so and so?" Because I'll say Rob Ems. Rob Ems is in the next issue, 235. So I've got an interview with him coming up. So I'm seeing Robert at a convention. Would you like me to interview Robert? And Chris will say, hold on, let me double check. He'll double check with the people that are up the chain from him, and they'll say yes, and it comes back down the chain to me, and then I'll go and do it, which is the process that happened.
Nice.
Other times it'll work out that I will just see somebody and I'll have the opportunity to interview them, and I will interview them, and I'll get it all done and all sorted out. And then by the time I get to go to Chris, I'll go, Chris, would you like an interview with so-and-so? And then he'll check and say yay or nay. And usually, because he's planning out issues rather, so far in advance, or was, then he'll come back and go, yeah, I can fit that in issue, blah, 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 in 3 months' time. As happened with, for example, Guy Henry. I interviewed him at Doncaster Comic Con in 2021. Nice. I think it was the first event I did after COVID, but because of just the lead times and everyone getting them back up to speed after COVID, I don't think that it landed in the magazine for about 18 months. And the same thing happened, weirdly, the same thing happened with Ahmed Best. Interviewed him at Wales Comic Con, had a lovely chat, worked up an article that came out really well, I think, and all things considered. And it was probably about 18 months until it got in, because of just COVID happened, and it just stretched everything out, and that it affected everything. So the process can vary, and now it's easier now to make things work, because you've got programs that can transcribe audio into text.
Yeah,
but all that does is put the basics on the page. You've still got to edit it. You've still got to, how conversations go. You might say, and pick a point here, and then 20 minutes later, pick up the same point. You're going to move it around and change it about and edit it, and so just make it read better. And so over the course of doing this magazine and stuff for StarWars.com and all the other bits and bobs, you get a bit savvier at how to work all of that. But it's never lost on me how lucky I've been and how lucky I am still to be able to do it. So it's always good fun.
I love it. What sort of time frame would it take you to let's say, knock up an article? Let's say an interview, for example. How long would it take you to go from that interview to getting it out of that massive brain of yours onto that computer, onto that typewriter, whatever it is you're using?
Typewriter, I wish. It depends. I mean, it very much depends. With some people, it's quite quick. I mean, Anthony Daniels is a great example, because he's so clear in what he wants to say and how he says it. Yeah, he's never take really that long. Once you've got it down. Back when I interviewed him the first time, I hadn't got the transcribe tool, so I'm literally listening with these headphones on and typing it as he's saying it, and that's just to get it on the page. And then you're sort of working it into a narrative flow, getting everything in the right order. So his was quite straightforward. I'll go back to Sanaya Sander. That was a tricky one, because that was a little bit more around the roundabouts a little bit. But they never. Well, I think once I'm on a roll, I'm focused on it. Once I get going, I'm okay. I mean, my trouble is I'm doing Fantha as well. I might be doing stuff for like ILM.com, or back in the day for StarWars.com, or Starburst, or whatever it might be. There's always other things sort of in the mitten of, as podcasts. So, there's always these other little things that are sort of drawing you away. But with Insider, it's great to know, right, I've got the afternoon now. It's 1 o'clock. I've done all my site stuff. I don't have to touch that till this evening. I've got a clear afternoon. And if I can have 2 or 3 hours sort of knuckling down on it, you kind of break the back of it. And then it's just tidying it up and just having another read, leave it a day, come back, have another read. The thing I learned and is more vital for me now than ever, to any editor, please give me a deadline. That there's nothing worse than the editor saying, just get it back to me at the end of the month. It's like, no, I need a date. Because what will happen if they say, get it back to me at the end of the month, and it's a 31-day month? I start it on the 30th. I'm terrible. So I need to know. I'd rather get it done and get it in. That's something I've learned. I need a deadline.
Yeah. No, fair enough. Are there any, I can word this, are there any interviews, articles, posts, blogs, anything that you've done that you've really struggled with? And the ones that you did struggle with, how did you get around them?
That's, that you don't know this because I've not talked about this to you. And this isn't Insider. This is actually for ILM.com. I won't say what it's about because it hasn't come out yet, but I worked on a triple header. So 3 of us worked on an article, and the other 2 guys flew into it and put their bits down really, really quickly and really concisely. And then because it's in a living document, I'd check it every couple of days, and it was upgrading, getting better and getting better, and I just couldn't find the hook. Just couldn't find the hook. So I spoke to the editor and we had a little chat, and we kind of talked it out a little bit. And then he said enough that I was like, I think I get this now. And I sat down, and in a whole afternoon, I researched and wrote this piece, and it came out pretty well. And I'm looking forward to people reading it. But yeah, sometimes, I mean, I'm pretty, I write a lot every day. I'm doing 6 or 7 articles on Fantha. So yeah, it's go and all the other bits and bobs. So writer's block, thankfully, touch wood, hasn't been much of a problem. But on this one article, I just couldn't find the kernel to get it going. But thankfully, once I had it, was okay. So I've not had that with the Insider, although there are still 2 issues left for me to completely cock things up. Oh, what a legacy that would be. For the last hurdle. Let's hope not. But I've been okay so far. We'll see. This might be the last magazine work I ever do, so I need to get it right.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not. No, brilliant. Is there anything in particular that what's going to be the biggest thing that you're going to personally miss from Star Wars Insider? Because people will be thinking, oh, it's just going to be the interviews, doing the nice things, but I know. We know each other personally, and I know it means a lot more to you than the fancy stuff that people see and think. What's going to be the one thing that you're going to miss the most, Mark?
Just being associated with it. It's been such a thrill. As I say, 20 years doing it. So 20 years next year since the first article. I can't pretend to have been consistent for that whole time. It really got going in about 2011. So sort of 14, 15 years by the time we're done. But just kind of just being Mark from Star Wars Insider, I'll miss that. Not that being Mark from Fantha Tracks isn't enough, of course it is. And I'll be very pleased with the legacy of work that's done. I'll be able to then sort of look back, and by the time I'm done, it'll be, I think it's 206 articles at the moment. It'll be hopefully pushing 210 by the time we're done with the reprints that are coming out and such. So that's a pretty hefty sort of bit of real estate I leave there. But just being involved and. It's been such an interesting, I hate saying journey. I sound like I'm on Love Island, but you know what I mean? It's like when you start off with these things, it's the one-off. And then I got to do another issue, that 119 I mentioned for the Empire thing, when I got to know Jonathan Wilkins and became a friend of his, and he sort of was seemingly keen to bring me in. I think another trick was that I'd interviewed him as well for Lightsaber, so those interviews really helped me out. And then I kind of just started to become regular. Bonnie Burton had moved on, and I started doing my Star Wars and Red 5, and that was very quick and regular. And because of doing the interviews for Lightsaber and then joining Jedi News and the connections that I'd made with Lightsaber, I took forward to Jedi News, and that helped. So I could get to people quite quickly and turn things around pretty fast, which is obviously a help. And the magazine had more issues a year back then than it does now. So that just the repetition of it helped. So I'll miss the involvement. I'm very fortunate. I'm writing for ILM.com now and Skywalker Sound, so they're keeping me very busy. But just as I say, just the fact that I can pick up an issue of Star Wars Insider and hold it in my hands, or show it to people and go, well, that's me. That's been a thrill.
Awesome. And I think that's the goal it's definitely for me. Every Star Wars fan would love their name in some form of Star Wars history, whether it's TV, magazine, film, music, whatever it is. And you sort of alluded to this as well. You could possibly say that Star Wars Inside has definitely changed you and helped you develop, would you say, as a person? Oh,
yeah, blimey, yeah. I mean, as I say, it's only the last sort of, I'd say 3 or 4 years I put the little picture in the front of the magazine. Yeah. So for, the previous, 15 years, you'd seen my name, but you'd never seen my picture. And it's an old picture. I really should have updated. There's no point now, but I should have really updated it, because that was a selfie I took in my collection room in about 2015. Just a bit. Look at me, come on. So that was a thrill. That was very cool. And weirdly, my wife Ruth, she had her photograph in issue 129 in the letters page. With Robert Watts. They met at Fordingbridge, and there's a wonderful picture of the two of them. So Ruth had a picture in the Star Wars Insider years and years before I ever did. So that was kind of cool. But changed me, it definitely has. It's made me, not that I wasn't already very proud to be a Star Wars fan, but just that little bit of involvement And like you say, I'd love to do a book. I've never done a book, so that's the big sort of monkey on my back, is to get on a book. I really
Nice.
want to try and make that happen if I can. But I've been quoted in books. I've had parts of my interviews used in books, but I've never done a book, so that's something I would love to do. But every month or every 6 weeks, I kind of knew most issues, not every issue, but most issues, there's going to be something of mine in there, you know, to open the first page and there's my picture and a little credit. So I'll definitely miss that. But yeah, it's there now. It's like you say Star Wars history. It's there. It's, you know, you'll find these things in Wikipedia. It's there, so it's not going anywhere. So I can definitely be proud of that, I guess.
Yeah, and then like you're saying now, you know, you're proud of that. And again, that the feeling of jubilation that you must have had when you've seen your first, you know, your first article go live, and then your second one, and then you're really on a roll there. You know, keeping your emotions in check. Was it difficult to? Well, not difficult, but again, you sort of have to keep things secret to a degree, don't you?
Yeah, you don't want to give too much away. I mean,
Yeah,
knowing some of the stuff that even in the last couple of 3 issues, most of them are done. There's a couple that haven't been done. There's one I'm working on, which is very cool, which I'm looking forward to getting out there, because it's an element of Star Wars. I'm not giving too much away by saying an element of Star Wars filmmaking that doesn't get much attention. That I've had the chance to sort of delve into a little bit, and that'll be mega cool when that comes together. And then a final interview, which hasn't quite come off yet, but if it comes off, will be really a bit special. So I'm hoping those things come together. But even if they don't, well, the one will, because I'm working on it. But the interview, even if the interview doesn't come off, I've been mega lucky with the people that I've spoken to. So yeah, and then you've just got to think, like everybody involved with Insider, you know, it's not just me. Obviously, there's Chris, the editor, will move on to other things, and my fellow contributors will continue doing what they're doing and looking for other stuff. So it doesn't stop there really, but in terms of Insider, it does. So that's going to be a wrench, because I was really hoping back in early days, sort of Celebration 6 in 2012 at Essen, at Anaheim, and I think, if I remember, at Celebration Europe in 2016, there were Star Wars Insider panels, and I was really hoping to kind of bring back the Star Wars Insider panel for 2027, which won't happen now unless it's a retrospective look back kind of thing.
That'd be good.
Which would be kind of cool. So I was hoping to do that, but I did do a few, which was really fun back in the day. I can kind of put my hand up and say that I was the person that suggested to the editor of at the time, John Wilkins, that the numbering of the UK mag and the US mag should match up. So because if you remember, the UK mag and the US one had a different numbering system, so I can kind of lay claim to that one. So that was a little kind of neat little thing, but. Yeah, I don't think, you know me, mate. I can talk all night about this. I don't think I'll ever stop talking about Star Wars Insider. So it's not going anywhere.
No, good. And I was going to ask you, but obviously I've got to be careful what I say again. Is if you had the opportunity to, how would you finish Insider magazine? But I guess we'll wait and see. My personal preference, or what I'd like to see, is everyone that's contributed to that magazine have some form of a page, a paragraph, just something saying their goodbyes. Similar to this, essentially, what you've enjoyed the most, something you found out about yourself, etc. That for me, I think, would be a fitting ending to such an incredible magazine. And I'd love for it to have gone out at Celebration in LA. I think that would have been absolutely, amazing. And they could have brought out one last issue at LA, is like the End magazine. And you imagine the collector's value on that as well. So that would have definitely sold. Probably missed the boat on that. You want to email that off?
I was just saying, I wouldn't argue with a word of that. I think the end of, I'm talking about Star Trek now, I'm going to get told off, but the end of Star Trek 6, when they all do the sign off with the signatures at the end, which is one of the most beautiful endings to any film, you know, gets me every time, because being an old school Trekkie. Something like that, like you say, Chris has edited stupid amount of issues, and John Wilkins before him, and then you go right back to Dan Madsen and some of the other people who edited the magazine, and Frank that I mentioned earlier, and just there is a lot of Star Wars Insider editors. And also worth mentioning that we have the UK version of the official Star Wars magazine, which sort of merged with the Insider when Titan took it over. There's a legacy there as well. So all of this is coming to a sort of a stop, and And don't forget that you've got the official Star Wars magazine in Germany, which uses a lot of content from the insider, and there are international editions as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know the fate or what the determination for those is, but you've got to assume it's going to have some sort of effect on them as well. So, so you know, it's not just insider as we know it. There's a whole sort of lineage that goes with it, and for me, that's always quite important, you know, for me personally, with the stuff I've done over the years, you know, from the fanfic when I was a kid and all the way through. Anyone who knows me, I bore everyone with this sort of stuff. But, you know, I keep track of everything, and there is a lineage, and it does matter because it's like you said, it's all part of Star Wars history, you know, and then everyone's got their own little square of Star Wars, you know, journey or history or whatever that they're part of or involved with, whether it's from a fan perspective or whether you've written for something. It doesn't matter what that is. It's everyone's personal thing. So I think when we look back at Inside, you know, 10 years down the line, when whatever the medium we consume Star Wars is in 10 years time, we'll look back at Insider and go, well, that was a decent run for sort of 32 years, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think people will look back, and hopefully, again, the powers that be do look back and think, you know what, we might have made a mistake here. But like we've said, you know, it's Type Magazine that's going. The name's still there. They could still move it on to a different publisher, so it's still sort of, you know, alive in the mix. I think the whole purpose of this chat was to get across, you know, the impact of this magazine ending, and I genuinely think, Mark, we've got the message out there for those that are listening or watching on whatever they're watching on social media platforms. It's been absolutely incredible reading, you know, getting to know you through the magazine as well, Mark. And again, I'll probably speak on, but well, no, I will speak on behalf of all the Star Wars fandom, mate. Is a massive thank you to you, the contributors, the publishers, the editors, everybody that's involved with that incredible magazine. You know, I went to do the post today, and I started to tag people, and the list of tags just went on and on and on. I'm like, well, I'll just stick with Mark Newbold because I know him personally. But no, it's been an absolutely incredible run. Before we sign off, Mark, is there any word of advice that you'd like to give to any upcoming editors, publishers, whatever it may be, that want to get into this line of work? Any top tips?
In terms of where you would go from here, I would say one of the beautiful things about Star Wars, and it's not lost, but it's not pushed to the fore, is that there's so many quirky corners and also so many curious fans. And I think there's lots of elements of Star Wars that you could really investigate and be eclectic about, because Star Wars is so eclectic. There's a million different ways of being a Star Wars fan. And I think the diversity in the sense of diversity of interests, diversity of opinions, diversity of the ways that you can consume it and be invested in it. Some of the Star Wars collecting sites will go way out into the weeds on things like, you know, Japanese, you know, marker pens, and there's a whole story about, you know, whatever it might be. Or back in the 70s in Argentina, they did a weird Star Wars promotion on their yogurt pots or whatever. And there's always a story. There's always something that you've not seen, or you kind of think you might have heard about. Star Wars has got so many of these little stories. I really hope whoever or whatever the next thing is brave enough and able to tackle these stories, because we're getting to a point where with Star Wars, especially with the original trilogy, you know, the actors they're getting on a bit now. And also the fandom is getting on a bit. And there's a lot of stories, if we're not careful, there's a lot of stories, a lot of knowledge, a lot of history that will be lost. Yeah. And so I'm concerned and also very keen for that to be written down or orally told or curated in some form and fashion, preserved. And so later fans, not everyone's going to care about that. Some Star Wars fans just want to come and watch the good stuff, and that's all they need, and that's brilliant, you know. But some others, really like us, love to get into the weeds, hear things we've never heard before, and thoughts and opinions, and look at stuff like, I've never seen that. That's amazing, you know. Back in the day, that might have been the biggest thing in the world, and time moves on, and you know, people don't know. So I really would like that sort of stuff to be thought about and considered, and you know, be a part of the story going on, because obviously Disney, Star Wars, they've got it's a mission, it's a business, it's a thing they want to sell. but they've got this tremendous half-century long history behind them. I don't want that to be forgotten.
Yes, no, absolutely echo those words. Mark, I'm going to call it there because, again, it's almost 1 a.m. I super appreciate your time. Thank you for everything that you've done, not just for Explore the Force, buddy, but also Star Wars Insider Magazine. Like I said to everyone that's watching and listening, head over to Fan for Tracks. Make sure you subscribe to the newsletter there. Keep watching daily as well for their updates. Again, Insider Magazine might be gone. Fan for Tracks is still there. And I know for a fact Mark is constantly posting everything on there. So, yeah, guys and girls, wherever you may be in the Star Wars galaxy, make sure to look out there. Mark, before we sign off, buddy, the floor is yours. So if you want to tell everyone where they can find Fan for Tracks, the days, the timings, etc., for your podcast, buddy, the floor is yours now.
Oh, thank you. Very simple. Everywhere at Fan for Tracks, or go to fanfortracks.com, which is the site itself. You'll find all our elements in there. So everything's sort of able to be found through the front page. And check out the podcast. We've got a number of podcasts, Making Tracks, which is the show I do with Mark Mulcaster, but we have 6 other shows as well. So go and check out our Fan for Tracks radio. And Sunday nights, 9:00, Paul and Brian, your big buddy Brian Cameron, on Good Morning Tatooine as well, our weekly live news show. So check that out, and always love people coming along and dropping in the comments like this guy does. So always welcome. So it's always plenty going on at Fan for Tracks.
Yes, make sure you check out them Sunday nights, definitely. Big shout out to Brian and Paul, massive fan of those two legends, as they know. Mark, thank you very much for taking the time, mate. Appreciate it. May the Force be with you, buddy. Take care.
And with you.
I am going to end this once and for all.
You were the chosen one.